I guess I was fairly apprehensive the whole time that I was flying in combat. And I guess there's good reason to feel that way. I'm there to cause a lot of damage and a lot of harm, and therefore they would like to damage me. And I was 25 years old at that time. Top Gun was really a thrill. I must have done well in actual combat because at the time I was just a lieutenant junior grade, which is a first lieutenant in the Air Force. And so I may have been the very first lieutenant junior grade to go through Top Gun. That was the dream of a lifetime come true. I had wanted to be an aeronautical engineer and a test pilot just like my dad from the time I was 10 years old. STS-27 was my third launch. And it was only the second launch after the Challenger accident. We were a top secret, classified Department of Defense mission. So to this day, if I told you what we carried, you could never leave this hangar. You'd be... Well, I will never forget. We maneuvered the arm, and Mike Mullane was my arm operator, so he moved the arm over there, and we brought up the television image of the right wing. And I looked at what I was seeing and I said to myself, we are gonna die. To be an airline pilot, there was mandatory age 60 retirement. I was a NASA astronaut until I was 50 years old. And so I looked at the situation, and I had known a number of Southwest airline pilots. And they were just like me. They were flying because they loved to fly. Well, there's a lot of piloting that goes into it, a tremendous amount of piloting that goes into it, because you're going to wind up passing other airplanes. You're going to get in a duel with another airplane that's fairly closely matched. So there's a ton of satisfaction from doing that. And hey, let's just talk about the racing itself. It's fun to fly low, but it's dangerous. And so the only time I fly low is at the Reno air races. But watching the ground go by you at 400 and 500 miles an hour is pretty darn thrilling, because it's really scooting on by. And that's fun. That's really fun. I had always been fascinated by racing planes because they're sleek, streamlined, and they go real fast. There's that need for speed again, and they're raced around a pylon. And so I determined that I could break the existing altitude record for altitude and horizontal flight for that category of airplane. And in fact, I did that in 1991. And I'm fond of saying that If I have done well as an aviator, it's because my dad was the one who taught me how to fly. And he didn't just teach me how to fly, he taught me the why of it as well. He taught me the aerodynamics behind it, the reasons that you're doing things, not just how to do it, but why you're doing it is also very important.
off all by itself. It does it itself. Okay?
Yeah, you're right there with me though.
Every time I open the hangar door to go flying, I realize that I'm one of the lucky guys doing something that I dreamt of as a kid.
My name is Rod Lewis. Great to be here. It's been a long time. So many years away. I don't remember it being this many people. I don't think I've ever seen two Tiger Cats at Oshkosh. They're great airplanes, great flying airplanes. They're probably one of the most fun to fly.
I'm Jessica Lewis-Worth. It's wonderful being back. I love seeing all the aircraft and the people and the longtime friends that we haven't seen and I haven't seen in 10 years here at Oshkosh. It's been really nice rekindling those friendships and just seeing what everyone's been up to over the last 10 years, really, since I've been here.
I'm Stu Dawson. I have the privilege of flying this airplane and we're at Oshkosh 2022. The mass of this airplane and how it goes. Well, it's for sure one of two airplanes that I call the best airplanes ever built.
My name is Gordon Richardson. Really honored to be part of the Lewis Air Legends crew. I'm able to fly the Bearcat, which is my favorite thing to do. It is the pinnacle of propeller-driven performance. I can't tell you how many people either saw a video or were at the event and just talked about the sound. Love that sound. That was amazing. Love the sound. So it's just a different kind of air show airplane that you wouldn't normally see, let's say, at an air show.
I think when I used to come and I wasn't a pilot, it would be very much like I just looked at every single airplane and I wanted to fly it, especially the warbirds. Rod's passion for, it's not like he's making money doing this, but for the, you put so much blood, sweat, and tears into restoring and taking care of and preserving as part of history. How cool is it that it's how many years after World War II and we can, there's nothing like the sound and seeing and hearing, and if you're lucky enough to be in one of the warbirds, and if people like Rod didn't restore them and keep them flying, people of our generation would have no clue what that was like.
I'm Conrad Huffstetler from Uvalde, Texas, with the very rare Grumman F4F-3 Wildcat. I'm actually really excited. We're getting a lot of interest in the Grumman F4F. There's a lot of larger Grumman cats here this year, and they're much bigger and higher horsepower and more exciting, but there's a lot of love for the Wildcat, which is rare. So I've been getting good reception. A lot of people are very interested in the early airplanes because they are now rare.
My name is Averill Dawson. The role that I am most excited about is I was offered the opportunity to fly co-pilot on the B-25. It is such an honor to be part of the Lewis Air Legends. Mr. Lewis is so kind and so nice, and it's so wonderful for the warbird community to have someone like him be able to have the airplanes he does. And there are a lot of museums around, but they're not all flying airplanes. And so for him to get the airplanes out and have them taken to air shows so everybody can enjoy them is just unbelievable.
This year they had the Grumman flight, and it's the first year that they've ever done this, and we got all the Grummans that we could represented here. From just the Lewis side of it, we brought 2 Tiger Cats, a Bearcat, a Wildcat, and the Wildcat that is here is a real Grumman Wildcat. It is the only one flying in the world, and I think there's only 2 or 3 left total. So it's a real big deal for that airplane to be here.
I've loved Breitling watches for years, so I've always been interested in what they're doing. And I've watched them all along. I watched what they did at Reno. I watched what they did, with the various aircraft that they've been involved with, the L-39s, the Mustang, the famous dual prop Mustang also. My interest in watches is there, my interest in what they do, and it's just a great get-together. It was amazing to see his expressions, because I was in an aircraft flying next to the Tiger Cat he was in, and just understanding the thrill that he got out of that ride was just enough satisfaction for me. So.
In November 1910, Eugene Ely took off from a modified Navy cruiser on the Virginia coast, flying a Glenn Curtiss airplane. 2 months later, Ely landed on a different ship in San Francisco Bay. Naval aviation was born. Training soon moved from Virginia to Pensacola, Florida, which is the cradle of naval aviation. Every naval and marine aviator to this day traces his or her start in flying to Pensacola. Every Navy aircraft ever flown is housed in the Naval Air Museum at NAS Pensacola. If you love airplanes, especially Navy airplanes, you will love visiting this incredible museum and its National Flight Academy for 7th to 12th graders on Fetterman Way at the museum. Navy planes dominated in the Pacific War. Fighters, the Grumman Cat series, the Wildcat, the Bearcat, the Tiger Cat, and the Hellcat. Hellcat pilots shot down over 5,000 Japanese airplanes in the Pacific. The late Alex Vashu, the Navy's fourth-ranking ace, said that he loved his Hellcat so much that if it could cook, he'd marry it.
Grumman's claim to fame in the aerospace field is their iconic Big Cat line of Navy fighters, dating back to the F-4F Wildcat in the late 1930s. The carrier-borne fighter designs that began with the Wildcat and ended with the F-14 Tomcat of Top Gun fame were chiefly fighters. Their names were taken from different feline species or, during the World War II years, a derivative of the cat name with an adjective in front of it. Grumman's first fighters for the U.S. Navy were barrel-chested biplanes. Known only as the F-2F and the F-3F, they had no nicknames. It is striking how few different types the U.S. Navy operated during World War II, particularly from carriers, and how nearly all of them were either totally brilliant or just awful. The Grumman Aerospace Corporation, now known as Northrop Grumman, made history, providing combat-proven carrier fighters to the United States Navy. Each of these incredible fighter aircraft were not only advanced for their day, but would have Grumman's unique style of being named after cats that became near synonymous with Grumman's Navy fighters.
All right, Rod, you take that seat. Stu, you can be next. Evan, and then Conrad. You got that hot seat right there, Rod. That's the hot seat. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Warbirds in Review. Appreciate you all being here. We have a distinguished cast here of pilots and airplanes. As Connie said, yeah, we are herding cats this morning, and I have to say it's really pretty cool. Quick introductions. The first guy to my left here, Rod Lewis. Some of you may know of him, may have been to his museum down in Texas. Another, I'll categorize you as an extreme warbird aviator, and we'll be talking to him about a couple of these airplanes. But basically, let's see, 4 of them are owned by Rod, and one of them is owned by the Fagans, who we have already recognized out here. There's Ron and Diane right there, and their son Evan, who is, by the way, way, another extreme warbird aviator, I'll say that. But alongside Rod, we've got Stu Dawson, another extreme warbird aviator, experience in all these airplanes, raced in some of, not these airplanes, but similar airplanes, as in Bearcats. And so we'll be talking to him a little bit about some of those airplanes. Evan, I already talked to you about, and then Conrad Huffstetler down there, and he's kind of an expert of the first airplane that we got here, and that's the Wildcat. So those are the folks that we've got up here, and like I said, I'm honored to be here amongst these guys, and I was just thinking about it, how much time we might have in front of us in terms of warbird time. And I'll just ask, Rod, how much warbird time you think you got? All airplanes.
All airplanes? All warbird airplanes?
All warbird airplanes.
Working on about 13,000 total time, but warbirds probably 1,000.
1,000 hours of warbird time. Stu, I don't even want to go there, okay? Stu, how much warbird time you got?
4,000 or 5,000.
4,000 or 5,000. Okay, so we're up to it. We'll say 6,000 hours. Okay, Evan, how about?
I have about 1,000.
Okay, so 7,000, and Conrad.
And I'll come in at the bottom at 500.
Okay, 75. So what you're looking at here is about 7,500 hours of warbird time in a variety of warbirds. So, gentlemen, I say thank you for being here, and thanks. Yeah, absolutely, spectacular. With that, I'm going to ask Rod a little bit about, hey, these are his airplanes, okay? And talk a little bit about his operation that he's got down there. And he, by the way, let's see. Rod flew in the Tiger Cat. Stu flew a Tiger Cat in here. Evan, did you fly the Hellcat? He flew the Hellcat in here, and I think the Wildcat was here, wasn't it? Okay, so he does fly them, and there's a story there too. But yeah, these guys flew these airplanes in. And before we go any further too, they will be flying acro shows with a Bearcat and with a Tiger Cat while we're here. And we're not sure. Hey, check your schedule. We're not exactly sure when you'll see that. But with that, Rod, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to say, okay, tell us a little bit about your operation and how you got involved. And this guy, by the way, I think he's up to 36 airplanes. Is that right? About 36 airplanes, and this guy is a patriot. Let there be no question that he's maintaining, he's flying, he's keeping the airplanes for us, and I truly appreciate that. But go ahead, Rod. I'll turn it over to you for a minute.
Well, thank you. I started out, I guess, in '95. First, I wanted to recognize one other pilot that's out in the crowd. Gordon, where are you at?
Gordon,
there he is.
Way in the back?
He's our resident Bearcat pilot. I don't know why you're not up here, but
okay.
Anyway, we'll get you involved. So Gordon flew the Bearcat in, and he flies this Bearcat most of the time. I've actually got 3 Bearcats plus a race Bearcat.
Okay.
And Stu can talk to you a little bit about that. But I started out back to your original question, started out in about 1994. I was really interested in the warbirds from '86 on. Didn't have enough money to buy one, so about '94 bought my first one. It was a T-28. '95 we brought it to Oshkosh. It won best T-28 in Oshkosh in that year, and then I bought a Whirlway. So I had a tail dragger and tricycle gear, and I just flew those mainly because my dad was in the Air Force 22 years, and he flew the T-28A. I happened to buy a B model with a bigger engine. So that's kind of how I got my start, and I just loved it from then on. The next aircraft I bought wasn't until about 2005, and it was an NA-50. Mm-hmm. And actually, it was at Chuck Yeager's Grass Valley Airport. Went there, he helped me look at it, we checked it out, and I bought that airplane. And then I bought a Mustang, and it kind of just went on from there. It really started in about 2005.
Okay. So. And now 36 airplanes later, and growing or stabilized at this point?
Growing.
Okay.
Yeah, I've actually got a Hellcat. It's been 7 years in the making, and I hope it's here next year.
Okay.
It was supposed to be here this year. So thank you, Evan, for bringing yours.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. Okay, well, what we're going to try to do in this program today is we'll start with the beginning of the cat series here. So we'll start with the Wildcat, and then we'll work our way up through the Hellcat, through the Bearcat, and the Tiger Cat. And so with that, I'll say, okay, this Wildcat that's here is one of yours, correct? And from an acquisition standpoint, where did it come from?
Oh, boy, you've got the history on that one, but it came from the bottom of Lake Michigan.
Okay. Conrad,
so
you got any details on that one?
Yeah,
So the Wildcat we see here is a pretty special Wildcat in that it's the only true Grumman-built Wildcat. There's probably about 13 Wildcats still out there and airworthy, 12 of which were all built by the General Motors company. So it is a rarity, and it's here today because it was lost in Lake Michigan in 1943 and spent 50 years underwater before it was brought back up and restored to flying condition. It is also an F4F-3, so all of the General Motors aircraft were a different engine and a different arrangement. This aircraft, the wings do not fold because they hadn't invented it yet. The F4F-4, the next variant, was the first one to get the folding wings. But this is the same airplane that would have fought for the United States in the early war period. This is our first fighter that we had going into World War II. You'll recognize the airplane as well from many of the early battles, Wake Island, Guadalcanal. This is the particular type that they had to fight those battles. As the years went on, they made improvements to the airplane, and they ended up going into full production on the Hellcat, so they passed off the manufacturing over to General Motors Company, and they started building FM1s and then the more powerful FM2, which is what we normally see. But a very neat airplane. We brought it up last year. We did some talks about it, and we left it here at the EAA Museum for them to showcase throughout the year and talk more about it. And we came up here a couple weeks ago, did all the inspections, test flew it, got it back into the only airworthy F4F-3. So we'll be flying it in the show, and we'll be bringing it back to San Antonio to join the rest of the collection.
Outstanding. How about, what was the limitation? Why, okay, we had this airplane, and it fought, and it did okay, but we wanted something better. What were the limitations? Why wasn't it good enough to go fight against the Zeros, et cetera?
Well, I'll back up a little bit with Grumman. Grumman started in December of 1929, and what they started doing was building floats with this very odd retractable landing gear. And they would use those floats on a different manufacturer of airplane, but it converted the aircraft to be amphibious. So that's where they got their start, and they started doing a lot of odd jobs, building truck bodies and all sorts of things to get by. But they decided they would build their first aircraft and try to win a military contract. And that first aircraft started out as a biplane. The FF-1 was the first one. And they made different iterations of the airplane, the F-2F, the F-3F, all biplanes. And the F-4F originally was going to be a biplane, but the Navy said, we're done with those. We want monoplanes. That's the way of the future. So the F-4F was converted over to be a monoplane. But the F-4F was just the most advanced thing we had at the time. And when we first got into battle with Japan, I think we had a rude awakening in that they had a very well-performing airplane. Somehow they had come up with the Zero, and the Zero could outperform the Wildcat. But the one thing that we had was a lot of good guys that came up with tactics to combat the Zero, as well as a very strong airplane. Grumman has always been referred to as the Grumman Iron Works because they built their airplanes just extremely tough. They could come home with a lot of battle damage. They had a lot of things that the Japanese didn't want to put in place, nor could they put in place for some reasons. But Grumman would put self-sealing fuel tanks, which helped protect the pilot. They put more armor plating, help protect the pilot and get them home. Whereas the Japanese Zero was a lot more lightly built and didn't have some of these amenities. So the Wildcat was the best that we had, but it still wasn't a great comparison to the Zero that we knew nothing about going into the war, but quickly found out it was a formidable fighter.
So the Zero basically could outturn it, could outclimb it, could probably outdive it, and we sat there and we said, hey, we needed something better.
Yeah, they had a task at hand trying to take on a Zero. A Zero was much more maneuverable, higher power to weight ratio, but they found that they could, there's a chink in the armor. They could shoot these things and they would light up and go down.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to devise tactics to be able to get a shot on them.
Yep, understand. All right, from there now, and we'll stop a little bit with the Wildcat. We're still doing okay on time. Okay, so we had to do something better, and so that something better was obviously the Hellcat. We bumped it up and we said, okay, hey, is this now a formidable counterpart to the Zero? And I think that's what they came up with. So, Evan, I'll turn over to you for a minute just to talk a little bit about the Hellcat.
Sure. Well, the Hellcat was designed, obviously, by Grumman, and what they did is they brought a bunch of Wildcat pilots in to help them figure out how to make the Wildcat better. They wanted to make an improved Wildcat, and they came up with the Hellcat. Flying the Wildcat, they're great airplanes, but they do have a little bit of limitation factor. They're wheelbase from center wheel to center wheel is 68 inches, so it's very narrow. Mm-hmm. And of course, being an aircraft carrier airplane, they'd point into the wind, and you don't have much of a crosswind. But the Hellcat, they wanted a more stable airplane. The Hellcat, obviously, you can see the gear is very wide. They changed the engine. It's an R2800-10, which is 2,000 horse. It's 18-cylinder. They first flew the Hellcat in June of 1942. And it had its first kill in September of 43. And the Hellcat, it's not the fastest fighter, but they designed it for a 200-hour farm boy to fly in combat. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did. It's the easiest flying fighter that I've ever flown. And it's very rugged. I know there's a story of a Hellcat landed on a carrier with over 200 bullet holes. Wow. Very rugged. They could be shot up, but so the Navy awarded Grumman the contract to get the Hellcat going, and they produced an amazing amount. 12,275 were built, and kind of a crazy fact, the factory heard a rumor that they were going to start laying people off, so they really started producing. And the war production record for an airplane is on the Hellcat, and they produced 1 an hour at peak.
Wow.
So they were pumping those things out like crazy, and the Navy actually told them to slow down. That's a true story. But so out of those 12,275, there's about 26 airframes left, and that's from a pile of parts on a pallet to this airplane here, and there's 7 that are deemed flyable. And of those 7, I would say, 1 to 3 on a given day are actually flying or in an annual. But the Hellcat could take a lot of punishment. It had 3 50 caliber machine guns. Each had 400 rounds, each machine gun. It could hold 8 rockets or up to 4 bombs, depending on the armament mission, I guess. But the top speed is not flashy like the Corsair, but their carrier qualifications were really good, where the Corsair was struggling. So it became the Navy's go-to fighter for a long time. And it just really took hold of being the mainstay fighter. Grumman, or the Hellcat, shot down 5,163 airplanes, which equaled 56% of all naval kills in World War II. And it lost 270 Hellcats to combat. So it had a 19-to-1 kill ratio, which was the best of World War II. And David McCampbell, it was brought up in that video, he had 34 kills, which I believe was the highest scoring Hellcat ace. And the Hellcat was the first airplane to fly with the Blue Angels, actually formed the Blue Angels with the Hellcat, and then later went right to the Bearcat. But it's a great flying airplane. Last year we had Don McPherson here, who's a Hellcat ace, and he's still with us. He's 100 years old. And got to know Don, and he talked about how rugged it was in combat and how much punishment it could take. And, when you fly this airplane, it's just the gentlest airplane it really has no bad habits as long as you're doing what you're supposed to, and it's just a great platform.
How about the acquisition of this particular airplane? Where'd this one come from?
This airplane was Yanks out in Chino, California. It was there, I think, since 1976. And I kind of pestered the owner for about 3 years trying to get him to sell it. And he finally did, and then we brought it over to Planes of Fame. And Steve Hinton Jr. took this project on. He was here last year at Warbird's Review with us, and we flew it about a year and a half ago for the first time. And it was a very good restoration process. The Hintons are first class. You can't beat them. And they built a great airplane. So,
yeah, I'll say now, afterwards, you'll have a chance to walk around these airplanes, take a look at them, because the rebuild process has been just absolutely tremendous on all of these things here. And the Hellcat in particular, we did that last year, and yeah, it was spectacular. How about top speed? Compare top speed on the Wildcat versus top speed on a Hellcat.
That's what do you consider top speed on the Wildcat cruise?
Well, I don't know that there's a number. It actually, one of the benefits of the Wildcat is it will hit terminal velocity. You can be full throttle, straight down, and it will stop going faster. So the neat thing about the Wildcat is it really doesn't have any gauge markings on the airspeed indicator. The flaps are vacuum, so if you're going too fast, they just won't come down. And I guess there would be a limitation on the gear, but it's pretty rugged itself. So I don't know that there is a speed.
Okay.
And the Hellcat, I'm thinking about 210 knots cross country is, but they had a very high red line, 420 knots.
Okay.
I can't even imagine getting to that, but Hellcat's built like a tank, and it'll just keep going. But it's not the fastest fighter flying over here with my dad in the P-40. He had to give me a couple inches so I could stay caught up with him. But we were doing pretty good coming over, about 266 knots with the tailwind, so
yeah, that's not
can't
bad.
complain.
That's not bad. All right, let's move on to, and arguably now we're getting into the Bearcat, Tiger Cat category. And I'll start now, just because I think it's a cooler airplane. Well, no, I'll stay with the Bearcat. So the expert here, and I guess over here too, is Stu up here, and he's flown these things for a long time. He's raced these things for a long time. And Rod, you said you own 3 normal kind of Bearcats, and then that one called Rare Bear.
Right, a dash one, one dash one, and 2 dash twos, and then a modified Bearcat. So.
All right. And okay, Stu, I'm going to put you on the spot now. What do you think about the Bearcat? How about starting out with the strange one, with Rare Bear? What do you think about racing that thing?
That's not a Bearcat.
Okay.
It doesn't fly like a Bearcat.
Okay.
It's highly modified. It's got so much chopped off the wing. The wing folds, when you fold them, they're about that big.
Okay.
The engine's been changed. We're running a 3350 versus the 2800, and a highly modified 3350.
And how much horsepower are you getting out of that thing?
Well, it's kind of debatable. They say this, they say that, but we're turning the airplane. 2800 is all you turn at 3350. We turn it 3200, and we're pushing about 80 inches of manifold pressure out of it.
Wow!
So it's doing.
It's a little rocket ship.
It's a rocket ship. We have to blow the struts all the way up to be able to land it and not get the prop.
Yeah.
So your approach to the field is your nose way up in the air, and you just hope you see runway as you come across the runway, and then
No
land
flaps.
it.
No flaps.
No flaps. No,
No flaps.
no.
No flaps.
No
Flaps are weight. You throw those away.
Understand. And
So-
I got to ask, how successful were you in Rare Bear?
I did. We raced it, what, Rod, 4 years? 3 years?
Yeah, I raced from 2007 to when we quit.
Yeah.
So.
And I got to second.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next deal was going to be nitrous oxide. And that puts it over the top. Because it ran, when it was somebody else's airplane, it ran nitrous oxide. and it was a hoss. But you got to have your nitrous guy has to be really good, or it's just going to go bang.
So that's the race side of it. How about the normal airplane? Again, they stepped up. They sat there and they said, okay, we've got the performance from the Wildcat. That wasn't good enough. We got the performance from the Hellcat. We want to bump it up from there. And, hey, Bearcat. And they jumped that thing up there. And primarily it was a weight thing, wasn't it? Didn't they really?
Weight and horsepower.
Okay, so talk about that. So,
the Bearcat is the most maneuverable one out here.
Maneuverable as in
maneuverable
turning?
and flight, and I mean it rolls good, it climbs good, it does everything really well. It's not a hard airplane to fly. It's pretty docile if you just do it right. It's light as it can be. A Bearcat is just one of the nicest ones to fly.
Didn't it have a climb to time record for a while there?
I'm not sure about that. Gordon?
Okay. It did. Okay, that's what I thought. I thought
it was 3 minutes.
3 minutes to 10,000.
Sea level to 10,000.
Yeah, that's what
that
I
was
thought.
the criteria that it was built under.
And that's what they were looking for. They wanted climb performance out of that thing, and they lightened it up. Still had big motor.
Yeah, but they're doing that and pushing 50 inches and ADI and everything, and it would go.
Okay.
It would go.
Okay.
But it's a very well balanced airplane.
And it came, unfortunately, a little bit after the war. It really didn't see much.
It didn't see a whole lot.
Which is unfortunate. But it was very popular on the air show circuit, too, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Blue Angels.
And did well. Yeah. So
absolutely.
So that's the next step. And now we jump into this Tiger Cat thing. And I got some personal experience with a friend of mine who flew the Tiger Cat, and that was a couple years ago. I think it was 2 years ago when Connie Bolin flew in with Stu, as I remember, and she lit up her left or right wheel?
Left wheel.
Left wheel lit up. They had a little bit of a problem, and when a magnesium wheel hits concrete, there's lots of sparks. I'm here to tell you, there's lots of sparks. The good news is no harm done. As I remember, they jacked that thing up, took the wheel off, put another one on there, and you flew another 3 shows or whatever it was with it. But that was that Tiger Cat. There are 2 other Tiger Cats here, and I don't know who wants to start talking about the Tiger Cat. Rod?
Yeah, I'll say a few words about it. Yeah, I think that's kind of my go-to airplanes. That and the P-38 are kind of the airplanes I really love to fly. I think 2 engines. At some point in your life, you want a second engine.
I understand.
So the thrust, the takeoff power is incredible. It's a short field if you want it.
Both 2800s, right? There are 2800s on each wing.
CBs and the ones that we have. And they're very maneuverable. They're a little heavier, of course, than the Bearcat. They're tough to fly in formation because you've got those 2 engines. But they're, it's just a very safe airplane. It's docile, stalls, very gentle, just like any Grumman. It's just an incredible airplane to fly.
Speed-wise, it's probably straight off the assembly line. It's probably the fastest of any of these. Could I say that?
Yeah, definitely. When I was racing, I raced the silver one out there. I set the track record at Reno for 3:99, and that was 50 feet off the ground in the pylons. So that was, we're banking the whole time.
Wow.
So it'll go.
And what's the difference between these 2 airplanes here now?
Not much.
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same.
Both Dash 3s.
Yeah.
Okay. And how about acquisition? Where did they come from?
This is the first one that I bought, and it came from the museum. And what was the name of the museum?
I'll think of it here in a minute.
Yeah, it's got
The other one was Lone Stars.
Yeah, Lone Stars. I actually bought it from Mike Brown. He was racing this Tiger Cat, the other one, and it was called Big Boss Man. And then I changed the paint job, and then I raced it after that.
The other one was from Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo, yeah, that's right. Yeah, this blue one.
Okay. And maintenance-wise, are they pretty easy to maintain, or are you constantly trying to work on these things?
We've got some guys that really know what they're doing. So I think the maintenance is just kind of a regular maintenance schedule.
Parts?
Parts, we haven't had too difficult of a time.
Okay.
We can find parts for them.
Okay, and I got to ask the same thing. How about parts on the Hellcat? Difficult, easy, hard, expensive?
Depends on what you're looking for, but if anybody needs warbird parts, we sell warbird parts, so shoot me an email.
Okay, and how about on Wildcat?
The Wildcat's fairly easy to work on because it's a simple airplane. But yeah, parts are getting harder to come by. You end up just pulling the original microfiche film from the Smithsonian and building what you need.
Okay, thanks. Just to let you all know, this morning was kind of a special morning. We gathered out here. I think the first brief was 5:30 or something like that. And the short story is that Breitling was involved. They wanted to get involved with warbirds, and they did. We had them here with a breakfast. They had a B-25. They had these 2 Tiger Cats and 4 P-51 Mustangs, and they all pre-briefed, and they wanted to go fly and take some pictures. And so that's what they did. It lasted, about an hour or so?
A little over an hour, yeah.
And as I remember, I think B-25 took off first, circled left, and I think the whole crowd joined up over top of the field. We watched a nice formation takeoff, by the way. I watched the 2 Tiger Cats took off in formation, and that was kind of cool. And then they joined up on the B-25, and then the 4 Mustangs joined up. And if it works, if you all take a look at the big screen, and I'm going to take a look here, I think we can coordinate so that we can show some of the stuff that went on here this morning. Scott, back in Sleeping Dog, promised me that he'd be able to do some of this stuff. And yeah, this is the flight this morning. You can see what, and you guys, yeah, you can stand up and take a look too. But this is what went on this morning, and we had. There you go. That's the flight that went on this morning. Some good formation flying. A lot of aluminum in the sky out there. Ray Fowler, I don't know if he's in the audience or not. He was flight lead. He was flying the first P-51. We had Paul Draper as number 2. Wes Stowers, number 3, and Lumpy. Oh no, I think it was Lumpy who was number 3, and Wes was number 4. And so those were our Mustang pilots out there. And I'll open. Stu, what do you think? Was it a good flight? Bad flight? Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was good. It was
Okay.
good. I think they got what they wanted. It was a little cloudy, and we had to kind of hunt a little bit to make it all work. But the clouds, they add something to it.
Yeah.
And once we all got settled down and everything, it worked out real well.
Yeah. Total flight time was probably about a 0.8, something like that.
Yeah, close to an hour.
Okay,
Like
close
that.
to an hour. Yep. And as you can see, yeah, they had some great fun up there. Good formation and some beautiful, beautiful airplanes. Okay, so we briefly touched on the Wildcat, the Hellcat, the Bearcat, the Tiger Cats. We've got a couple racers here. Rod, you raced for a while. Stu raced for a while successfully. I don't think you're not racing anymore, are you?
No.
Okay.
We've called it quits on the
Okay.
racing.
How about you, Stu? Are you racing anymore?
No, I finally grew up.
Okay.
We raced 18 years out there.
18 years, okay. And you guys haven't raced yet,
No.
okay?
I race in another class, some composite sports class.
Ah, okay.
Race a Lancer, but not the Warbird side.
Winning, losing, close.
I'm beating myself every year, so that's all I go out there for.
All right, that's good. All right, so we've briefly touched on these Grumman airplanes out here, and I'm probably going to open it up to questions and see what people want to know more specifically. And again, we have some experts here, so I'll say now, if I see I see Kyle out there. There we go. We got mics out there, and I already see a question. Let's start with some questions up there.
Ed, can I recognize a couple of what I would call extreme female pilots?
Absolutely.
And one is my girlfriend, Hannah, and she's type-rated in a couple of jets.
Anna, stand up so we can see who you are. All right, outstanding.
And she's training in the B-25 right now.
Wonderful.
And then my daughter, Jessica, who's an extreme helicopter pilot, fixed-wing pilot, and training in the Warbirds also.
All right, and there's one more, and I don't know if she's out here or not, but in the right seat of the B-25 this morning was somebody I think Stu knows very well.
Somebody I know pretty well.
Yeah, and April, are you out there? This is Stu's wife,
I
April?
think she's over there at the tent.
She's in the tent.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, probably. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she's
But anyway,
been flying forever.
this is, as you can tell, this is a family affair here, and yeah, it was nice to see the families involved. But okay, we've got a question. I see him right there. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, is this on? Can you hear me? Is it coming through? First thing I want to say is I'm a Navy guy, and I'm in heaven looking at all these airplanes, and I want to thank everybody who was involved in restoring them and bringing them here. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And I'm just curious, what's VMC on this Tiger Cat?
Doesn't really have one.
Yeah, we've probably pushed it to 450.
Oh yeah, you go 450.
VMC. They said VMC.
Oh,
VMC.
okay. They don't really publish you a VMC. They publish you a speed that you should fly. Okay, they don't say this is going to roll on you right now. But it really depends on how much horsepower, how heavy you are, as to what kind of speed you're going to have to carry. It's not a published VMC.
And for those of you who aren't pilots out there, VMC is
125,
Velocity
120.
Minimum Controllable. That's what that stands for. Okay?
Now, if you're dragging a bunch of tanks and everything, you're going to have to up it.
Yeah, probably 170.
Oh, no, it's 120, 130, somewhere right in there, depending on how much you're dragging.
Okay. And yep, okay.
You don't want to find it.
No.
Yeah, you don't want to find it. That's correct. All right, other questions. All right, we got one over here.
What kind of approach speeds do you see different from all four models right here? Are they all similar in approach speed for landing, or slightly different?
I'd say the Wildcat's probably the slowest, and I hold about 100 mile an hour indicated throughout the short approach, and then it probably touches down around 70, or it's a 3-point attitude touchdown, so 65, 70 maybe. It's fairly slow.
And I go over the fence with the Hellcat about 85 to 80 knots.
100 knots on the Tiger Cat.
Bearcat about 90.
Okay. So they're all close. They're all in the ballpark for a Navy airplane. All right. I think we got another question over here.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to second the appreciation for bringing these beautiful airplanes up here. I don't see any guns on the Bear and the Tiger. Where are the guns?
There's some guns on the Tiger Cat. Fake. On the second Tiger Cat, on the silver one.
On the combat.
Yeah.
On the combat model. How about the Bearcat? Where would they?
Nothing on them, but the Bearcat would have had, what, 450 calibers?
Yeah.
Six.
I'm not sure. This airplane didn't come with guns, and we've never outfitted it with guns. So it's faster without them.
We don't tend to need them much nowadays.
How about the Hellcat?
I don't know.
Hellcat had what? Had six
Yep.
650s on it, right?
Yep.
Okay. That's what that had. All right. More questions. All right. There's one. I see one right there. Oh, wait a second.
Have you guys ever done a dogfight with a Corsair with the Hellcat? Or do you know of how well they perform against each other?
He probably has. I haven't.
I've never done a dogfight between the two of them. I've flown both of them, and both of them are really nice. I mean, they hang on and do, but I'm thinking the Hellcat would probably take that one because the Corsair's not as fast.
A little touch on some of the Grumman technology. The Wildcat kind of started it, and then it followed up through the models, but I mentioned the vacuum flaps. The flaps were set up in such a way that you could select flaps down during combat, and they would stay up if you were going fast, but if you started to get into a turning fight, the flaps would slowly start to come out and reduce your turning radius. So that was something that the fighter pilots didn't have to play with. They'd set it to flaps down and go fight. And if the Zero wanted to utilize that, they'd have to manually do it. The Hellcat incorporates basically the same system, but it's electric.
Right.
Okay, we've got a youngster over here. Go ahead, sir.
Which is the nicest to fly?
What is the nicest to fly? What is the nicest to fly? Okay, we'll go down the road.
Well, I
What do you
haven't
think,
flown
Rod?
the Hellcat yet, so I would say the Bearcat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stu?
I got to go with the Tiger Cat.
Okay.
And I've only flown the Wildcat and the Hellcat. I like flying them both, but I really enjoy the Wildcat.
Okay. Conrad?
Yeah, Wildcat. There's bliss to simplicity.
Yep.
Say, Conrad, how many cranks to get the gear up?
Yeah, the Wildcat's a little more involved. It's, like I say, more manual. The landing gear is a big hand crank on the right side, and I think it's about 29. I seem to be doing other things, so I'm not counting. But if you watch it fly, it's kind of a different takeoff. What we do may be different with others, but the faster you go, the harder it is to crank. So on takeoff, it's a pretty high pitch angle, and we're trying to keep it around 100 mile an hour indicated so that there's not too much pressure on the gear. But you crank it up, and when you do so, you've got to duck your head down, so you take a break and see what's going on outside and go back down and keep cranking. But it adds to the fun and to the history of the airplane. Those guys had to do it just off the carrier back in the war.
Wow. Wow. All right, we got another question over here.
Could you comment on the Wildcat's paint scheme? It looks like Butch O'Hare's paint scheme.
Yeah, this airplane, it's painted up.
Say the question one more time. I think people had
the paint scheme on the
Okay,
Wildcat.
the paint scheme.
The paint scheme is Butch O'Hare's livery. So this airplane obviously is not the exact airplane that he flew, but this airplane was in training here in Lake Michigan and spent a lot of time underwater, but it was rebuilt and painted to be the same scheme as Butch O'Hare. And if some of you have seen recently, Paul Allen did an expedition and actually found the USS Lexington at 11,000 feet deep in the ocean, and they got video of the actual Butch O'Hare Wildcat.
Wow. Wow. Okay, another one over there.
Just curious about the fuel burn, and you always hear about oil burn.
Fuel and oil burn. Okay, let's start with the Wildcat. What are you burning? Fuel-wise, gallons per hour.
It probably does about 40 gallons an hour, maybe a little bit less.
Okay.
And then oil, it doesn't burn much. Maybe a gallon every 4 hours.
Okay. How about the Hellcat?
Hellcat, I'd say the first hour, if you're using climb power and you're going up high, is maybe 75 gallons. And after you level off, it tapers out to about 55, 57 for fuel. And oil's probably, a gallon every 3 hours, something like that.
Okay, and how much gas you carry on the Hellcat?
87.5 in each wing, and it's got a reserve of 75. And then, of course, if you have a drop tank set up, which I don't, so.
Okay. How about on the Wildcat? How much gas you guys carry?
Generally, it's 126 gallons in a belly tank, and then this Wildcat has a small tank in the back, about 26 or 30 gallons or something.
Okay. How about the Bearcat? What's that carrying?
Bearcat, well, you figure 75 to 80 an hour now. If you
Okay.
pull the RPM on back, that's where you'll gain your mileage.
Okay. And how much gas does that thing hold?
This one holds should hold 213 in the front tank.
All right. And how about the Tiger Cats? How about fuel burn on those things?
Fuel burn, we figured about, in cruise, about 135 gallons an hour. That's pulled back. And we drop 680 gallons.
Okay.
Cost a little bit of money to pull up to the
Yeah, I was just doing the math in my
gas
head there.
pump.
Yeah, 130 gallons an hour. Okay, yeah. Somebody do the math out there and tell me at the price of avgas. Wow. Okay, that's impressive. All right. We got two questions over here. All right, go ahead, youngster.
Did the Tiger Cat see any action of World War II?
Tiger Cat see any action during World War II?
No action. It was actually a little late to the war. I think it would have been a hell of an airplane. It was a reconnaissance airplane after the war, So it came out about 6 months after the war was over, so no action.
Yeah.
The Tiger Cat could carry so much armament.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a brute.
Mm-hmm. And it was designed as a two-seater, correct?
Well, the first one was a single-seater.
Okay.
And then they added the back seat.
Okay.
On the 2s and the 3s. And then I think they even did it on the late 1s, but the 2s and 3s and 4s had all back seats.
Okay. Okay.
What about what?
Korea.
Korea.
The Tiger Cat
Korea,
saw
the Ti-
action in Korea. It had different roles after the war, but question specifically World War II, it was too late for World War II.
One of the things that was real good about the Tiger Cat is it became a fire bomber, and it was fantastic. And everybody liked it. It would carry a large load, and they could get down in the valley and then drop their load, and they could come out of there because it's got so much horsepower.
Okay. Another one over here.
I got here a little late, and I haven't heard much about the P-38. The reason is I'm a Gold Star son, and my father was killed over France on a P-38. And we found the crash site, and he said it was the best. He thought it was better than the P-51.
Okay. Yeah, the P-38 we're not going to be talking about today, I don't think.
Well, I wasn't here yesterday.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry about that. But as long as we're talking about that, and thank you for your father's sacrifice, I'll say that.
Absolutely.
But what I would like to do, and I always do this in my presentations, I'd like those who are serving on currently active duty or in the reserves or veterans, I'd like you all please to stand up. We'd like to give you a hand. So active duty, veterans, reserve. Thank you for your service. All right, we got another question down up front.
Just had a Wildcat question. Can you compare the Wright-powered versus the Pratt-powered?
Yeah, so I've actually had the opportunity I rebuilt an FM2 in 2013, which Evan now owns, and I'm I guess one of the few to fly both of them recently. But the FM2 had the 1820 Wright engine, which was 1,350 horsepower, and it was supposed to be what they called the Wilder Cat. It added power, and they pulled out a little weight what they could. So the FM2 is a great performer, but I would say the Wright 1820 is a little bit more rough engine. It beats you around a bit more. This particular Wildcat, the F4F-3, has an 1830 Pratt & Whitney, which is a twin-row 14-cylinder. So right off the bat, it's a lot more smooth and just more enjoyable to fly.
A DC-3 motor.
Yeah, so this particular airplane has a DC-3 motor, a Dash 94, which is more horsepower than what it would have had in the war. So this particular Wildcat has equal horsepower to the FM2, but it doesn't have the folding wing, and it doesn't have all the guns. It's got 4 guns rather than 6, and it has been lightened up, armor plating and whatnot. So anyway, this one is a particularly good performer versus the FM2. So I got to say, I do enjoy this one a little bit more, but they both have their advantages.
Thank you. All right, we got one. Go ahead, up top there.
I understand that the Bearcat has a little bit of an unusual wing structure, spar structure compared to other planes. Could you explain that?
Spar structure on the Bearcat.
Stuart, you want to take that one?
I have not rebuilt one of those, so I can't really comment on the wing as far as the structure and what's in there. I'm not familiar with that.
I can give you a little bit.
All right, there we go. I was going to say we got another Bearcat guy over here too. He might know. I'm not sure, but go ahead, Conrad.
I don't know what you're referring to exactly, but the Bearcat originally was designed with kind of a special feature where the wingtips would come off. If you over-G'd the airplane, the wingtips would come off and reduce the load on the spar. So that was an attempt to make the airplane lighter by underbuilding the spar, but still not having any aerodynamic failures.
The bad thing about that, if one came off.
Yeah. So one would come off and put you into a fun situation. So they ended up just kind of going away from it. And what we deal with nowadays is a little bit of an underbuilt spar. And I don't know the particulars about the spar, and I've not rebuilt one, like he said. But this one you can see has a spar strap. There's a cap that's been added to give a little extra strength. And then some of the newer Bearcats that are being rebuilt are being built with a heavier spar, a different material and a better spar.
There's another way to do that. Cut the wings off like bear and don't worry about it.
Yeah.
What was top speed? What did you get out of Rare Bear? I'm just curious.
Last time it was 490 something.
Okay.
Qualifying. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Up top.
Is it possible to visit your museum in San Antonio?
Yeah, it is. Most of my airplanes, I've got a ranch just west of San Antonio, and that's where most of the aircraft are right now. But there's probably half of them at each location, and yeah, the one in San Antonio, sure.
All right. Sounds like he's going to visit. All right. We got another one up top here.
Yes, you don't read too much about the Tiger Cat going aboard the ship. Can you address that at all, or were there any squadrons that deployed the Tiger Cat on a ship?
You know, they were made to land on the ship.
Yeah.
I can't tell you whether they ever landed any
Yes,
on the
they
ship.
did.
They did. Okay.
They were aboard the boats, but it wasn't. The airplane was made for that, but it wasn't used primarily for that because it worked good off the land too, and it has good range. We can put 300-gallon drops, one in the middle, and then got some on the outboard, so it'll go a long ways.
And one of the characteristics about landing this airplane is it is made to land on the carrier, so the struts are really stiff. If you don't slam it on, it's gonna come off sideways, and it's hell. You know, when you're taxiing, it's hell to taxi off the runway if you're going the wrong way. So we try to land firmly when we land one of these, unlike the others where we want to grease them on.
Okay. All right. One more.
Were these planes equipped with tail hooks, or how did they land on carriers?
They had tail hooks.
Okay. And as far as catapults, that came after their.
They
use?
didn't need it.
Yeah. None of these airplanes took off with catapults, but they all landed with a tail hook. And, yeah.
Yeah, you put your flaps down and get one of these off in 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
If you start inspecting them afterward, you'll start to find little hooks up in the wheel well areas. The Wildcat's got a little hook in the center, in between the landing gear. The Hellcat.
Yeah, you can see them right behind the.
Yeah, they're there. So they did have some hooks for a bridle and a catapult system later. And then one of the Grumman benefits was the tail hook was not truly exposed. It would suck up into the back of the tail or be fared into the tail, so it wasn't hanging out like you normally see, but they are tucked up in there somewhere.
It's tucked up in there on the F7. It's just about, you can't see it.
Yeah.
And I will say there's going to be a cat flight. Do we know when? I don't think we do yet, where they're going to have the Hellcat, the Wildcat.
It's this afternoon, and I'm not sure. I've got a briefing at 11 o'clock. Oh, now.
Yeah. There's two guys that need to leave now. But yeah, there is going to be a cat flight where we're going to have the Tiger Cats, the Hellcats, the Wildcats, and the Bearcats, I think, all flying together. So that'll be a celebration of the cats. And, yeah, this afternoon, it sounds like, is when we're going to be doing it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. One last question anywhere? Nope. All right. With that, I'll say, first of all, Rod, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for being the caretaker of these airplanes. And,
Appreciate it.
And Stu, same thing. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Keep
Thank
flying
you.
safe out there. Evan,
Thank you.
Conrad, thank you.